Mr. Haroon Sharif, who served as the Minister of State and Chairman of Pakistan Board of Investment. Next to him is Mr. Yong, who is the Economic and Commercial Counselor, Embassy of the Republic China in Pakistan. Mr. Yong is representing on behalf of Mr. Nong Krong, Ambassador of the People's Republic of China in Pakistan. I, on behalf of STPI, welcome you all at this August gathering. Now I will give the floor to Dr. Abid Suleri to deliver his welcome remarks and start the proceeding of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahar. अगर मैं मीडिया के दोस्तों से कहूँ कि अपने कैमरास जब आप उसको रिकॉर्ड पे कर ले तो आप काइंडली बैठ जाइए ताकि पीछे व्यू जो है वो ब्लॉक ना हो. जी सर. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, ladies and gentlemen, depending from where you are watching us, because there are more participants online following us on Facebook and on our Zoom page and also on our STTV from different parts of the world. This is the concluding day of our 4 days annual Sustainable Development Conference that we held under the theme Beyond the Pandemic, Leaving No One Behind. And it was inaugurated by President of Pakistan in the presidency. And during last 3 days, we have been discussing different aspects of human deprivation, different aspects of inequalities, iniquities, and how we can systematically leave many people behind in our pursuit to growth and in our pursuit to development. And the whole crux of this sustainable development goal is that no one should be left behind. Now, when we are talking of no one should be left behind, of course, we tried to tackle these issues from sectoral perspective, from health, from education, from energy, from gender, from economy. But then there is a classical case that comes. There is a country where all of these things are not available. So we are basically leaving a whole country behind in South Asia when we are progressing towards sustainable development and progressing towards SDGs. And I'm referring to Afghanistan. And that was the reason we had 3 sessions on Afghanistan situation. The first one was this morning with the Western diplomats. So we had country director of World Bank Afghanistan. We had country representative of World Food Program Pakistan. We have Canadian High Commissioner Haroon Sahab was there. And of course, our former ambassador to China, Ms. Nagmana Hashmi. So we tried to explore different aspects of Afghanistan situation from humanitarian crisis to different modalities, how aid can be provided there. Then we had a very discussion with Dr. Moeed Yusuf just before this session. And we had a threadbare discussion on Pakistan's security policy and Pakistan's policy towards Afghanistan. And as all of us know, it came very clear that Pakistan's socio-economic security, it get impacted when things go wrong in Afghanistan. So, of course, Pakistan at one hand cannot, is not ready to take the burden of any more new refugees. But if as a neighbor, if we don't take this burden, Afghanistan, which according to UN, so it's not any private citizen or any government talking about it. So according to the UNDP, Afghanistan would be a classical case, maybe once in this century, where the poverty, people below poverty threshold would be nearly universal. 97% people would be below poverty line by February 2022 if the humanitarian aid is not quickly mobilized there. But then as Dr. Moeed Yusuf told us that we don't have the mechanisms of sending or transferring that money. So we are in a fix. So this was the crux of the discussion so far. And this session, again, in a way, it's a sequential of the previous 2 discussions. But we want to add an added dimension to it. situation of Afghanistan and how it would affect CPEC, situation in Afghanistan and how it would affect Pakistan and China relation, situation in Afghanistan and what Pakistan can expect from China. Because if we remember, China gave its assurance when Taliban took over that China would be standing with the people of Afghanistan. So China never said that it is going to acknowledge, recognize the government of Taliban, but China said that it would support the people of Afghanistan. So now, again, the discussion and the multi-billion-dollar question is how to support people of Afghanistan. And to kickstart the discussion, I'd request Haroon Sharif to give his opening remarks with my longish welcome. And then we will come to our two distinguished panelists.
For reminding. Well, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon. And as Abid said, good evening to people as well from wherever you are joined. Thank you very much for joining, Special Assistant to Prime Minister, Mr. Khalid Mansoor, my good friend. Abid, thank you for the introductions. Thank you for joining, representing Ambassador Nongrong. I'm sorry to hear that he could not join, but I understand that he was not feeling well. So very quick introduction to this session. Dr. Abid Suleri has already explained that how it has fit into the dialogue of the conference, which is beyond the pandemic and leaving no one behind. China-Pakistan economic corridor is such a wide issue. If you click on the Google search, perhaps it is the most searched word in this part of the world and outside. So all of us have read about it, we know, so I'm not going into that detail. What we need to see is that we are going beyond the pandemic and how it will shape up in future. So that's what we need to talk about today and make it, helpful to the lives of the people. Connectivity itself is a good thing, but it does not automatically impact the lives of everybody. For that, you need to have policy interventions. For that, you have to have institutions. For that, you have to have partnerships. And for that, most importantly, you have to have leveraging of private capital into the system. So unless you do that, it's very difficult that an infrastructure of connectivity takes you to the shared goal which China and Pakistan has, which is basically the shared prosperity as China has consistently, narrated in CPEC. Today, this session, we would like to have more interactive discussions. I will pose a few questions to SAPM on CPEC affairs. And then with his comment, we have a message from the ambassador. And then we will actually open up discussion today. So what I wanted to raise here is the serious questions which are related to China-Pakistan economic corridor. Where do we stand today? That is question number one. But lots of people, say. We have seen two extreme views. One is a populist political view that, this is basically the solution to everybody's life, which frankly speaking, no intervention alone is a solution to everyone's life. It will take us to the growth levels which we need and everything. That is one extreme. We have other extreme from the Western media who has looked at it from a criticism angle or rather eye of suspicion. They speak about very expensive loans. They speak about, that, are the projects really environmental friendly and so forth and so on, So we have two extreme media views. My request to this gathering, because we are here among researchers and media people, we need to look at it very realistically, objectively, and look for solutions that how this can actually help the lives of the people in this region, not only from the angle of stability, but also shared prosperity where people can benefit. And that is where I would like to pose, Khalid, three questions to you for your thing, but you are obviously welcome to comment on anything. So Mr. Khalid Mansoor is, he joined recently in term. Okay, so what I will do is that, okay, my very first question is that, we have heard statements from across the board about a very big wish list under the CPEC. So you should tell us and the audience that where do we stand today and what are the top three priorities of you and the government for taking it in the medium term, so that we set the very clear tone, and then I'll come to my next couple of comments.
Thank you, Haroon. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, Dr. Suleri, thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to address the foremost question. What is happening to CPEC? Whatever it is done today, whether it has slowed down or where we are heading as far as phase 2 was concerned. At the outset, I would like to really compliment you for arranging such kind of dialogue. Because as I started to interact with the cross section of media and people, so I feel that there is a lack of communication based on the reality on the ground rather than perception, whether it is within the country and outside. So first of all, I would like to very briefly tell you where CPEC has already reached and where it is destined to eventually. Well, firstly, and I'm telling you based on my personal participation when the CPEC framework was being discussed and then articulated and then documented, it's a roadmap starting from 2015 all the way 2030. So this is, not is going to be ending soon, but it is going to be continuing for years to come. That is, point number one. And as we started to discuss that what should be the framework, to all of you would recollect that that was the time when Pakistan was going through probably the most terrible power crisis in the country, 12 to 18 hours of load shedding, and then the industry, was not able to run. And in addition to that, the difficulty and the inconvenience with people of Pakistan have been really experiencing. What was the core issue? That we did not have adequate power for people and for the industry, and whatever power we were producing, it was most expensive. And what effect it had on the economy, that the power, if it is expensive, then it is one of the major component of the input cost. So our produce in the international market has not been very competitive, and that's the reason we were losing export orientation. Secondly, 38% of power generation based on furnace oil. And that is the reality. And let me tell you, not many people know, because I was heading HUPCO, and HUPCO has been or still the biggest IPP, that furnace oil has 3.5% of sulfur, which is not environment friendly in any ways. So our challenge was that we needed to have more power, and the power which is very cost effective, and also bring in a kind of scenario whereby we can look at developing Pakistan with the energy security. And for that, you see, the indigenous fuel has to be really taken some kind of space in the energy fuel mix. Unfortunately, and fortunately, we have been blessed with the 7th largest reserve of coal in the world, which is Thar. And at one single location within a 9,000 square kilometer, we are blessed with so much coal that it can really address our power requirement for more than 200 years, for more than 200,000 power, etc., etc. But unfortunately, there was no conviction and belief that we should be able to exploit that. Cut long story short, I remember that when I was assigned this task to develop Thar, so this was one of the greatest story. Also, the public-private partnership between Angro and government of Sindh, a bankable feasibility study was done, and it was confirmed that the exploitation of coal and then using that low heating value coal, which is lignite, for the in situ, not in situ, but mine mouth power generation is technically and economically viable. So when this bankable feasibility was done, and that too by RWE, which is arguably one of the most experienced and the biggest company in the world for using such kind of coal for power generation and mine mouth, mining as well. Unfortunately, no funding was available for coal-based power projects and also for mine. So this is when, we really resorted to China. And thanks to China, for really helping us out. And as a result of that, the project phases were defined, that what is going to be the early harvest project, and then the mid-term project and the long-term project, and all in the purview of One Belt, One Road initiative of China. China wanted to have its alternative route rather than the route which they are currently using from the eastern part of China, etc. They wanted to have, the route from Kashgar all the way to Gwadar, because this is going to be an alternate one. So in terms of really the time needed for the trade of China to really, for the sea shipment, the cost, etc., etc. But this is a kind of alternative for China strategically, because the existing route is quite vulnerable. I won't go into detail because time is short. So this is essentially a win-win situation to begin with, that please help us to alleviate the basic crisis of power generation and really bringing Pakistan a scenario for the energy security, and also for China to have, the One Belt, One Road initiative. And right from very beginning, China was very sure that as part of the One Belt, One Road, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is going to be a flagship project. And their, long-term perspective or long-term security could be secured. So everything started, and I'm happy to report that as part of the phase one, the scope was really limited, and that is what is called early harvest projects. So as we speak, more than 5,000 megawatt power generation is already up and running. More than 4,000 megawatt power projects, they are in the pipeline, and close to 4,000 megawatt is in the early stage of the development. What is the second scope? Second scope was, which is, more from the Chinese perspective, and that is what, they wanted to create an alternate route and the connectivity which Haroon has just mentioned, because they believe that their, trade should have a connectivity, and Pakistan is one of the most strategic location. From there, they should be having access to Middle East, to Africa and Europe, and so on and so forth. So the second scope was development of huge, infrastructure, and so many motorways and roads, all get connected within the country, and, also really bringing the prosperity to the very poor cross section of Pakistan in the province of Balochistan. And the third thing is, naturally, if the trade has to route from this, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, then, you have to have the world-class port, and that is where the emphasis has been on Gwadar port. So $25 billion investment is already in place. So that essentially concludes the phase one. And now we are into phase two. Phase two is the phase of, further business development. That is where we are. And that is the core reason I have been persuaded to really join and really give back something to the country, which is phase two. And what is phase two? Phase two scope is order of magnitude more than what the phase one was. I have been working through this framework. There are 10 joint working groups, and we have variety of sectors on which we have to really develop multiple projects. And once they are developed, then we need to execute them where? Into special economic zones. So the ball is in our court. And if, inshallah, we should be able to really, start developing and executing, then personally, I have no doubt, or rather I'm talking with fullest conviction, that inshallah in Pakistan, we are going to have the industrial revolution, and Pakistan is going to be the main manufacturing hub. In order to achieve two core objectives, we need to have the import substitution, and we need to have the export orientation. And for that, there are 9 special economic zones, but at the moment we are focusing on 5, one each in one province. And then you see the free zone in Gwadar. And before I conclude the answer to the first question, we have to learn from China. And since, I have been visiting China or traveling China since, late 80s, I've seen this evolution in China. And oh my God, I was so impressed that in such a short time, how the China has come out of the poverty. Doctor, you're talking about poverty, but we need to learn. There's no reinvention of the wheel. I have seen North American and European economy, which evolved from the labor intensive industry to high tech. And when that situation came and the cost of labor or cost of production has increased, then China is the one, they offered their country to both European and North American industry to come to China with a very simple formula that, look, we are going to give you the fiscal incentives. We will have, special economic zones, and you virtually relocate your industry, which is labor intensive, because we can give you a, manpower, which is, cheapest in the world. And I remember that, during my own career, whenever we used to have the competitive bidding, China would outclass the local contractors because their bids used to be order of magnitude lower than that. But that is what the evolution of China was. When they did, and I'm sure most of you either may have traveled to China, so I have seen not even a single North American and European industry who doesn't have their manufacturing hub in China. What is the bottom line? Entire Chinese economy evolved. And if we go back to the history, their GDP used to be much lower than us, right, Haroon? I hope I'm saying correct statistics. And now they are order of magnitude, more than us. And even one single province of China, Shandong, their GDP is more than the total GDP of the entire country. And I was really, taking some kind of feedback from the architect of this evolution of Chinese economy, Professor Justin Lin. What he told me that, Mr. Mansoor, you have to just, follow what China did. And what they have done, that they persuaded, European and North American industry to relocate. Now, for China, this is the tipping point. In China, the labor intensive industry is uncompetitive now. Their labor rate is higher than what it is in Pakistan. In Pakistan, it is an ideal situation. And I was just, in the morning looking at the statistics that, 80% of our population is lower than age of 40, and almost more than 60% population is, skilled people. And I'm talking about variety of sector, be it, textile, be is going to be, agriculture, and so on and so forth. What we are supposed to be doing now in phase 2, to really develop all those projects in this variety of sectors and persuade Chinese industry with a proper business case, not just narrative that, okay, it's all weather friendship, please come to Pakistan. Our relationship is, higher than Himalaya and deeper than Arabian Sea and sweeter than honey. Here is the business case and why Pakistan should be a preferred destination for China to come to Pakistan. And that is exactly what have started. And if we are able to do that, then, we should see the relocation of labor intensive industry. And inshallah, we should be able to then achieve our two objectives, which is, import substitution and export orientation. And the bottom line that it is going to be creating huge employment opportunity. And just to give you a benchmark, when China followed that strategy, they created 85 million jobs. And that is where the whole country or whole nation came out of poverty. So I did some justice to your question.
Thank you very much for we stand and what is the way forward and what are the aspirations. And also you have mentioned the challenges in a way in between. We'll come to you, but let's take the view of China. And, I would like to request my colleague, Mr. Yong, to give us, 5 to 7 minutes, if you could, of the message, either from here or you can do it from there. But the microphones are here, so you can switch on the microphone or take this one if you want. Yeah. So that we can then open up the questions.
Okay, and thank you, Excellency. And firstly, I want to express sorry for the inconvenience of His Excellency the Ambassador. And now I'm here to represent him because I have a paper here. So maybe I will follow the message from the Ambassador. And if there's necessary, I'll speak some. Yeah, okay, thank you. His Excellency Mr. Khalid Mansoor, the Special Assistant to PM on CPEC, His Excellency Mr. Haroon Sharif, former Minister of State of Investment, and Dr. Abid Suleri, Executive Director, SDPI. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It is my honor to attend SDPI's 24th Sustainable Development Conference. Before my speech, I would like to express my thanks to Mr. Khalid Mansoor and Mr. Haroon Sharif and all participants at the presence for your firm support for China-Pakistan friendship. My thanks also goes to Dr. Abid Suleri for offering me a platform to share my views on the achievements of CPEC and the way forward. The CPEC is the pilot product of the Belt and Road Initiative. In 2015, His Excellency the Chinese President Xi Jinping paid a historic visit to Pakistan and unveiled a new chapter for CPEC with a 1+4 structure and focusing on Guada Port, energy, transport infrastructure, and the industrial cooperation. Ever since that, the CPEC has steadily developed and is termed as the game changer by His Excellency the Prime Minister Imran Khan. With our joint efforts, the CPEC has made remarkable achievements and have brought tangible benefits to the two peoples and laid a solid foundation for Pakistan's economic and social development, and help to facilitate Pakistan's strategic transition from geopolitics to geoeconomy. So far, the CPEC has 46 projects completed or under construction, with a total investment of $24.4 billion. The Guada is right on its way towards the regional trade and business hub. The first phase of the Guada Free Zone is completed and has attracted 40 companies with a total direct investment above 3 billion RMB. The second phase, which is 36 times larger, was inaugurated by His Excellency the Prime Minister Imran Khan. The China Aided Vocational and Technical Training Center was handed over to Pakistan in October this year and can offer 1,000 local youth to learn working skills every year. The East Bay Expressway is about to be completed. By the end of this year, actually. The construction of the new Guada International Airport is speeding up and is expected to have its first flight by early 2023. In areas like the energy and infrastructure, the CPEC products have provided 1/4 of the national supply of electricity, brought 886 kilometers of national transmission line and 510 kilometers of highways to Pakistan, which play an important role in the country's overall development. And also the special economic zones like the Lashakai SEZ has been launched, also was inaugurated by His Excellency the PM Imran Khan. In the field of social livelihood, 17 projects have been launched and more are underway. Agricultural cooperation like the contract planting for the chili is quite successful. And the export of onion to China is kicking off. Ladies and gentlemen, the CPEC has entered a new stage of development. On September the 23rd, 10th of Joint Cooperation Committee meeting on CPEC, the CPEC GCC 10, was successfully held. Both sides agreed on comprehensively building the healthy industrial, trade, digital, and green corridors in the near future. Firstly, we are committed to build our two governments and people have been helping each other in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. China has provided vaccine to Pakistan with a total of 135 million doses. I think that's including the doses free of charge and also the commercial, the commercial methods. Through joint efforts, the localization of vaccine production has been realized. We set up a model for international cooperation in this regard, and we closer partnership in a healthy sector. Secondly, we are committed to industrial corridor. Industrial cooperation is a top priority for enhancing the productivity of Pakistan. A country with more than 200 million people, Pakistan has a huge market with good opportunities. We will encourage and support more Chinese companies, especially the manufacturing companies, to invest in Pakistan, which will boost employment, exchanges, and generate tax revenue through more exports. And thirdly, we are committed to building a trade corridor. The second phase of the China-Pakistan FTA, which came into force in January of the 2020, trade liberalization has been significantly promoted. According to the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, China imported from Pakistan worth of $2.1 in the year of 2020 to 17.5% year-on-year growth. We will expand the import of Pakistani products to build closer the trade partnership between the two countries. But fourthly, we are committed to building a digital corridor. Digitization is a trend of the times. In a 10th GCC meeting, a new joint working group on IT industry was set up. We will seize the historic opportunity in a new round of scientific and technological revolution, as well as industrial transformation, to develop the digital economy and step up exchanges and cooperation on digital technologies, such as the new infrastructure, mobile payments, e-commerce networks, smart factories, and the digital TV, and make Pakistan a model of the digital Silk Road. Firstly, we are to building a green corridor. Prime Minister Imran has 10 billion tree tsunami initiative is in line with the concept of green mountains are golden mountains, proposed by President Xi Jinping. China and Pakistan should strengthen cooperation on green infrastructure, green energy, green finance, green agriculture, green forests, and green investments. Ladies and gentlemen, China is much encouraged by the positive gesture taken by the Pakistani government and its leaders. His Excellency, the Prime Minister Imran Khan, personally attached great importance to the development of the CPEC. Saying that CPEC products are running at full swing, and it is quickly moving towards to the industrial cooperation, which will help the country in wealth creation. A new mechanism for better coordination of CPEC products has been established. It is named PAC-China Relations Steering Committee. New visa policy on CPEC was released, which will facilitate the potential investors and partners for access. New institutions, the Foreign National Security Cell was set up to enhance security measures. Prime Minister himself communicated twice with Chinese entrepreneurs for advance and convened high-level meeting to study the development of the special economic zones and instructed all localities and departments to enhance support for the CPEC. This all give us more confidence on the future of the CPEC. As President Xi Jinping stated in a phone call with Prime Minister Imran Khan on October the 26th, the world is undergoing profound changes unseen in a century. Under the new circumstances, the two countries should stand together even more firmly and push forward the all-weather strategic cooperative partnership and build a closer China-Pakistan community with a shared future in a new era. For this end, we should work hand in hand, jointly build the CPEC with high-quality development and bring more benefits to the whole nation and beyond. Strong in pledges to regional peace and prosperity. Team Pakistan, Islamabad. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Lee Yong. So for a very comprehensive now, setting the record straight and what has been achieved, and we are moving towards, jointly community of shared future. So Khalid, I'm going to make your life a little difficult now. So we have done the initial introductory, remarks. What I'm going to raise at this point is, how does it work? Yeah, it is on, but yeah, now it's working. Mr. Thank you. Thank you for the technical assistance. So, so I would now, for the interest of audience and myself, go very specific, because now we are moving to the second phase, as you mentioned, which is industrial cooperation, economic zones, and investment from China to Pakistan, technology transfer, etc. Now, to be very specific, can you tell us that, A, do you have a tangible target of investment 3 years down the road? What should we expect? Number two, linked to that, is that can you name a few Chinese ventures which are likely to be announced in the private sector pretty soon in the economic zones? Because we have been talking, but people need to know what's, which company is coming to Pakistan. And finally, you have seen the capacity in the government, which is low. Coordination is a challenge. So what are you doing to deal with that? Okay. So I told you I'll make it a little difficult.
No, it's not at all. I'll say the truth and truth and truth. Okay. Yeah, you there. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? It's coming. Okay. Haroon, let me try to articulate the question, because, when you're going through such kind of, hello. यार ये तो अंगूठा ही थक जाएगा फिर. That's it. Okay. Hello. If you look at the challenge or the objectivity we have, you have always challenge, and this is what my personal professional life has all about. You always have difficulty in terms of developmental challenges. And if you were to look at the big project, you have to deal with bureaucracy in any way. And even in my professional career in the corporate sector, I have had very intense coordination and working closely with the bureaucracy. And if we were to name one of the biggest project, which is public-private partnership, that was the development of Thar. So I have been through that grind already. The first thing is that when I took up this job, given that I have been from the corporate sector, so I spent few weeks and then, finalize the objectives which I should be developing and delivering. Until you have the objectives, you would not be able to stay focused. So one of the great KPI, which I have really agreed with the Prime Minister that inshallah ta'ala, in the next 2 years, we should aim at bringing at least 40 new investors in Pakistan. 40. So that is the KPI. And whether we are able to do 39, then objective is not achieved. And the objective has to be smart. It is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and target bound. So the target bound is that within 2 years. Second thing is that, as I said, that unfortunately, whatever progress has been happening, so one category are the big project which requires, G2G kind of cooperation. The other one are business to business. So as I started to visit various special economic zones, I have been to Rashakai in KP, I have been to Islamabad, the Islamabad industrial, city. I have been to Dhabeji, and I still need to visit Bostan in Quetta, which I will be doing soon. But 2 times I have been to Gwadar as well. So to my surprise, there are more than 14 or 15 companies from SME category. They have already invested in Pakistan. And the type of businesses they have already set up, this is, tiles, this is, LED bulbs, it is, kind of detergents, and then, agriculture project, textile, and so on and so forth. But their issue was that, while developing their project, obviously they were having some kind of difficulty dealing with the bureaucracy in terms of timely allocation of the land and getting the permits and getting the NOCs, etc. So I very quickly learned that if proper facilitation is provided to them and alleviate all the problems they have been experiencing, then you can up their confidence. And once, we started to do that, and those were not very difficult problems which could not be resolved. So as soon as they began to sense, they wanted to come and, thank Prime Minister to do that. And everybody just kind of submitted that they will be more than doubling their investment in Pakistan. So that's the greatest news and encouragement. And it is a kind of, if you do something to them, give them the confidence. And, one sector I forgot about, and that is, the telecommunication. Oppos and, Xiaomi of this world. And now, they will be more than doubling the capacity. When I visited one of the textile manufacturer who have set up their factory very close to Lahore, it is Challenge. It is 230,000 square feet of, working area. So I asked them, since how long they have been operating in Pakistan? Less than a year. And they started with a production, and what kind of production, world leading, brands, the Adidas, the American Eagle, and, what you call Uniqlo, and so on and so forth. So they started with their, export worth 40 to 50 million. And next year they are anticipating that their export is going to be $450 million. And they have acquired additional 130 acres of land, and they will be back integrating, because previously they were importing some of the raw material and, other components of this apparel from China and just, kind of stitching it over here. What kind of opportunities they have created? And I have seen, close to 3,500 young Pakistani labor, and they were working under one roof, and very, very limited Chinese supervision technology. So I interviewed some of the Pakistani labor and asked them that how long did it take them to be productive? And again, the quality of training and the focus approach was so outstanding that basically required 3 to 6 months of training, and they would be able to do that. Second part of your question is that what is the strategy, how we are going to do that? You see, the scope is very clear, and these are the variety of sectors. And, as we rightly mentioned, I would not waste time repeating them. And all the projects which are to be developed, which have been really gone through the bilateral agreement, followed by the recently held JCC, and all those projects are already ratified, that these are the projects where China is going to provide us help in terms of intellectual capacity, in terms of, technological support, and last but not the least, the financing. Okay. Ball is in our court, and we have to now really start developing the project the way they deserve. And in order to do that, rather than just mere statement that, this is the project, but eventually we have to have a deep dive. And for each project, we should have a detailed, activity bar chart or Gantt chart in which all the multiple activities are defined. And then there's a timeline, there's a target, and how you are going to be achieving those objectives, dealing with variety of, interfaces within the, bureaucracy. So rightly, as you mentioned, if the capacity within the ministries is not adequate, so we started to work with the whatever capacity I have, and we have developed already all those detailed activity bar charts, and now we have taken them back to those executing agencies or ministries. And the second thing is, again, from the corporate sector experience, put together a management process. And what is the management process? This is basically monitoring the progress on a regular basis. And that is a critique that, okay, if this is the activity which is supposed to be completed on such a certain time, whether it has been achieved or not achieved. If not achieved, what are the bottlenecks and what is the mitigation strategy? The platform which is made available to me, as you said that the coordination is difficult, one of that forum was mentioned by Yong. And that is that if, for instance, the facilitation role with CPEC authority is really delivering in coordination with the various ministries, if we have difficulty and the problem is in the area of policy, then we have got, cabinet subcommittee, which is, cabinet committee on CPEC. And that committee deals with all the policy issues. For instance, if in textile, we are having a difficulty, a policy is not clear, or, it requires, some kind of changes, etc. So that's the platform, we have to leverage. If there are some operational issues where the problems are not being resolved, then the second platform which has been recently created, it is China-Pakistan friendship, not coordination, but the operational committee. It is the steering committee, and steering committee is, we are steering the progress. And in that committee, not only all the relevant entities are there, but there is a participation of the provinces as well. The chief secretaries are there. Then the third thing, and the third thing is Prime Minister office itself. And that is the commitment which has been given by the Prime Minister, that if we have created a facilitation center in CPEC authority, and what is the role of Prime Minister? He said that he has committed, he will stand behind that window, the one window operation. And there have been at least, 6 sessions where if we cannot resolve the issues in these 2 earlier committees, we can, take it to the Prime Minister office. And so far, the result has been very encouraging. Lastly, how we are going to be approaching, because obviously there's a pandemic, is a very, very stringent protocol, or the isolation policies in China. So we resorted to a kind of, videocon type of meeting. So far, 2-3 sessions have been held. The first session was in which we invited all the Chinese companies operating in Pakistan. And to my surprise, there are 147 companies already operating in Pakistan. So we really communicated them that how we will be serving them and what kind of facilitation center we have already created in CPEC authority, whom to contact, and so on and so forth. 70 companies participated in person and more than 35, through videocon. So that forum, or the town hall, provided me with an opportunity to disseminate, to give them the commitment at the highest level, and telling them that how all those issues, including the security issues, could be resolved. Then the second thing is that in order to now persuade the Chinese, we have to first of all prepare very, very thoroughly. One of such study which has been completed, it is in textile. In textile, like what kind of opportunities are there, what fiscal incentive the policy is offering, and where they should be able to have their manufacturing facility in which particular special economic zone, what is the readiness of special economic zone, whether the management company in these special economic zone are going to be legally empowered to provide them and plug and play type of environment. That would mean once they come, they should be able to immediately start getting into the execution, because we are changing the regime from the approval regime to a compliance regime. So you will just take the undertaking from them that they have to be complied with such and such law of the land, and then there is going to be some kind of, audit. And if they would not comply, there's going to be some kind of penalty. So with this kind of preparatory through Embassy of China, we contacted the top leading companies in the textile sector of China. It only happened last week. 35 leading companies participated, Haroon, 35, okay? And they are very big companies. And for the first time, such kind of discipline and structured communication was done with a proper, presentation. And I already started to receive a lot of, interest from them. And this is the kind of approach we will be using in other sectors. Second is going to be agriculture, then IT, and then the industrial cooperation. And in couple of the industrial cooperation, you are already assisting me, which is the petrochemical complex and the refineries and the pipelines and so on and so forth. So I guess with that kind of approach, and given that the roadmap has to continue until 2030, Alhamdulillah, we have just built up the momentum, and I am talking with my conviction and confidence that inshallah you will see more and more. And I think it is pertinent to mention that we have also started to resolve the issue relating to execution of ML1. It is one of the biggest infrastructure. And inshallah, the Chinese are responding, and we are leveraging, good offices of ambassador. Ambassador himself is a very pragmatic person because he has been mayor of one of the provinces. He knows what do you mean by the project development. So I think leveraging all that kind of stuff and the recourse which is available to me, and I'm confident that inshallah we will see a lot more happening in the coming days and weeks and the months. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I will pass it on to Abid if you have any questions, but I think this is a topic, lots of questions will come from the floor.
Yes.
Over to you.
No, actually, this was the baseline scenario that was explained both by Honorable SCPM as well as Mr. Lee Hong. So now we know that where do we stand today? The question that I have in mind, and I'm sure many of the friends sitting in the hall, they would have in mind, is about the ripple effects of emerging regional situation on CPEC. We saw this tragic incident of Dasu Dam. And of course, we identified the external players who wanted to sabotage this whole plan. So such sort of security implication. So I would like to ask SAPN.
I'm so happy that you asked that question. In my 1.5 months of my joining or taking up this this responsibility, JCC was not happening, and the main issue is the security one. So at that time, we started to really tackle what had happened in Dasu. It's very unfortunate. And 10 Chinese people, they lost their lives, and, it is unpardonable, to say the least. So the main thing was that, the work was stopped, and rightly so, because the security is of, paramount. But I also would like to mention that all the CPEC project, their very comprehensive security is the responsibility of Pakistan Army, the CPEC project to begin with. And Dasu is not part of the CPEC project, right? So in my personal experience, I developed and virtually directly supervised at least 6 projects under the purview of CPEC worth $5 billion. So the good news is that all the projects which have been executed in a kind of confined battery limit, there has not been even a single incident of security. Thousands and thousands of Chinese, have worked, and the protocol was so comprehensive, through the lead of Pakistan Army and the involvement of law enforcement agencies, private securities, rangers, and so on and so forth, that they will receive the Chinese at the airport and then provide them the escort, interim stay in one of the city, and then, transporting them all the way to the project site and vice versa. And 3-tiered security at the project site. So nothing, alhamdulillah, had happened. And that is a very time-tested kind of security situation. The 2 incidents which took place, once at Dasu, and then second one, in Gwadar, but fortunately we did not lose any life, and the security which was deployed already over there, they intercepted, but unfortunately, that gentleman, blew himself. So there were, the casualty of Pakistani, and the gentleman who intercepted, he was martyred. but that is a kind of, preparedness. But what Chinese wanted that, if that is the kind of situation, the project which are being executed outside, not in the confined space, how we can make it foolproof. So I had a very, very detailed interaction with, Pakistan Army, and Pakistan Navy is also providing the seaworthy security at Gwadar, because, there are multiple projects, and, Lee Hong mentioned that what is happening over there, some within the confined spaces, and one, East Bay Expressway, which is going to be connecting, Gwadar Port with the national highway. It's a 19 kilometer long, project. So very detailed investigation was done, and a revised protocol was prepared, and through the direct intervention of military operation, and that, comprehensive revised strategy of providing such kind of enhanced security was given to Chinese ambassador along with his entire team, and with their fullest satisfaction. The good news is that the work at Dasu has already resumed, and so was the work at Gwadar. And going forward, inshallah, all the project which may not be under CPEC, but every project which is being done by Chinese will be provided this kind of security. And additionally, in Ministry of Interior, a special cell has been created under the leadership of a senior, additional secretary, and that is going to be providing that kind of stuff. So this was your first question. And what was the second one? Yeah.
The second one was that are we foreseeing any other ripple
Yeah.
effects of,
Now,
one situation?
exactly. So
on
again,
CPEC.
like the first one, whether, CPEC has stopped or it is not really progressing. And again, the unfortunate understanding was that CPEC is only China centric. But as I assume my office so far, there are at least, 13 or 14 ambassadors who have visited me. They wanted to learn whether through the One Belt, One Road initiative, which is regional connectivity, whether they have a space to contribute or participate in CPEC. And obviously my answer was yes. And that included, also from the, US consulate, and also, from US embassy, etc. So in order to give them a very comprehensive dissemination that what are the opportunities, what kind of fiscal incentives are there, whether we have the preparatory in place for the special economic zone, we had already planned an international investment conference on the 15th of this month. But unfortunately, we have to postpone it because of Islamic conference, which will be happening in Serena Hotel. But it is now planned to be held next month around the same date. So inshallah, you will see, a lot of participation from, the European countries and from North American countries. And there we will really let them know that CPEC is open to any investor from any part of the world, inshallah. Also the economic zone. Anybody can invest.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to panelists for taking all the candid questions, explaining in depth. And today, at least, I would be leaving with more education and more knowledge about CPEC and where it stands today. And we have full confidence and trust in the leadership of Khalid Mansoor Saab. We hope he can bring this corporate energy in the public sector as well to revigorate CPEC. Thanks, Mr. Lee Hong, for joining and representing the Excellency. Our best prayers for his speedy recovery and sustained health. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of this plenary. हम 6:30 बजे दोबारा इसी हॉल में इकट्ठे हो रहे होंगे. शौकत तरीन साहब हमें ज्वाइन करेंगे. पाकिस्तान की इकोनॉमी पे थोड़ी सी बात होगी. वजीर आजम पाकिस्तान का मैसेज जो है वो प्ले किया जाएगा. और उसके बाद डिनर से पहले हम इस प्लेनरी को खत्म कर रहे होंगे ताकि आप लोग अपना डिनर हमारे साथ कर सकें. आपकी तशरीफ आवरी का बहुत शुक्रिया. मेरे लॉजिस्टिक टीम थोड़ा सा हाल को रीअरेंज करेंगे, लेकिन उसके फौरन बाद हम अगली प्लेनरी शुरू कर देंगे. बहुत शुक्रिया. एंड हारून, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर मॉडरेटिंग इट एंड फॉर कन्वीनिंग इट.